Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 28 female, was married to my now ex-husband, Alex, 34 male. When we first started dating, he was sweet, attentive, and honestly, he made me feel like I was the center of his world. But as things got serious, there was an elephant in the room that I just ignored because I loved him so much. His family, specifically his mother. The first time I met his mom, she looked me up and down and gave me this weird half smile. After a moment, she asked, "Have you ever considered straightening your hair?" For reference, I have naturally curly hair that I'm proud of and never thought much about changing. It was an awkward moment, but Alex quickly brushed it off, telling me she just likes things a certain way. Over time, these comments became a staple every time I saw her. "Oh, honey, you don't need all that makeup," she'd say, when I wasn't even wearing any. Or, "Are you sure you're feeding Alex well? He's looking a bit pudgy," even though he was the one regularly indulging in junk food. The worst part? Alex would sometimes agree with her or laugh along, even if he'd previously complimented me on my look. I probably should have seen the red flags then, but I kept telling myself she'd warm up to me. When Alex proposed, I was over the moon, and I threw myself into planning a small, meaningful wedding. We both agreed that saving for a house was more important than splurging on one day. My parents generously helped with the wedding costs. On the day, despite everything going smoothly, Alex's mom kept making helpful suggestions that really just felt like digs. She went on about how she would have picked a bigger venue, a different dress, and even different vows if she were in charge. I gritted my teeth and let it go. She was his mom after all. After our wedding, we moved into a cozy little house that we bought together, or rather, that I bought. I make a good income in tech, and with his student loans and credit card debt, Alex wasn't able to contribute financially to the purchase. I didn't mind because I loved him, and we were building a future. I kept the house in my name just in case, and he never seemed to care. His parents, however, seemed to assume that he was responsible for our lifestyle and that I was some kind of gold digger. I overheard his mom once telling him, "She's lucky you put up with her." I trusted Alex to correct her, but now I wonder if he ever did. Fast forward about a year. His parents started dropping hints that they were struggling with their mortgage, and soon, Alex asked if they could move into our guest suite, just until they got back on their feet. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I figured we could make it work if they were in their own space. So they moved in. What was supposed to be a few months quickly turned into an indefinite stay, with them slowly taking over more of the house. I'd come home from work to find his mom redecorating our living room or cooking in my kitchen and leaving a mess. It was getting unbearable, but Alex just kept saying we needed to be patient. Then came the breaking point. Alex suggested we take a vacation to the Caribbean, a chance to unwind and reconnect. I was thrilled, until he mentioned his parents would be joining us. When I told him I wasn't comfortable with that, he insisted it would be fun and promised we'd have time alone. Reluctantly, I agreed on the condition that I wouldn't be paying for any of their extras. He said he understood. A week before the trip, I noticed he was acting a bit off, but I chalked it up to stress. The night before, I set my alarm, excited for a well-deserved break. But when I woke up, it was late, way past the time we needed to leave. My alarm had been turned off. Panicked, I checked my phone, only to see a message from Alex saying, "Don't worry, we're on our way." Confused, I pulled up our home security camera and watched, completely stunned, as Alex, his mom, and his dad loaded up the car and drove off without me. His mom actually laughed and said, "This is perfect. Now you can meet someone new without her around." My heart sank. I called my travel agent and found out they had transferred my ticket without my knowledge. In her defense, she didn't know it wasn't me changing the name. And yes, I was charged for that too. I thanked her and hung up, feeling a mix of betrayal and anger that I hadn't felt in my life. I decided right then and there that I was done. First, I called my bank and reported my credit card stolen. Then, I locked down all our joint accounts. I also changed the house locks. With my finances secured, I went back to the security footage, saved the clips, and forwarded them to my attorney. 2 days later, Alex called, saying they had a mix-up and assumed I was meeting them there. By the time they realized I wasn't there, it was just too late to turn back. Alex also told me that he's sure I've realized by now that he had my credit card and charges were no longer going through. I told him that I had no idea what was wrong with my credit card. When their return flight date rolled around, he called, furious. He was yelling, asking why their return tickets had been canceled. I calmly told him there must have been a mix-up, then dropped the bomb that they no longer had access to my house and that the locks were changed. Alex was dumbfounded, trying to argue, but I cut him off. You wanted a vacation without me, and now you've got one. Enjoy the extended stay. I then texted him the address of a storage unit where I'd sent all of his and his parents' belongings. 2 days after, they finally managed to return. Alex showed up at the house. Well, tried to, only to kiss the door. He blew up my phone, but I ignored every call. The divorce papers were filed within the week, and I haven't looked back since. My friends and family think I handled it brilliantly, but Alex's family is calling me heartless and a vindictive witch. Alex himself has been begging me for another chance, claiming he was pressured by his mom and didn't know how to say no. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for changing the locks, canceling his return tickets, and essentially stranding him and his family after they ditched me on a vacation I paid for? Wow, just wow. They ditched OP, used her money, took her ticket, and were actually happy about it. The fact that his mom was openly encouraging him to meet other women is beyond insane. And the fact that he thought he could waltz back into OP's house after all that is ridiculous. OP handled this like a boss, honestly. Changing the locks and putting his stuff in storage was the perfect response. His mix-up excuse is laughable. If anyone tries to say OP is vindictive, she can just tell them the full story and watch their jaws drop. OP is way better off without that mess. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole, and well done on setting clear boundaries. You gave him so many chances before this. You were more than patient. His family sounds like they've been using you from the start, with him as a willing participant. I can't believe he just thought you'd sit at home and wait for him like everything was fine. You deserve so much better, and he needed a wake-up call. Also, bonus points for how you handled the return flight situation. Bet they didn't see that one coming. Enjoy your freedom. Not the a-hole. Alex and his family sound manipulative and toxic. The fact that his mom was so comfortable criticizing you and making comments about him finding someone new shows that they never respected you. And he let them. It's one thing to have difficult in-laws. It's another thing entirely when your spouse is complicit. Honestly, you dodged a bullet by getting out of that relationship. You didn't ruin the marriage. He did, by choosing his mother over you repeatedly. Enjoy your fresh start. This is some next-level betrayal, OP. Not the a-hole at all. You were more than fair in giving them a place to stay and putting up with her constant criticism. The fact that Alex thought you'd just get over it after being left behind is insane. Also, kudos on handling it calmly and taking all the steps to protect yourself financially. You clearly know your worth. If anyone calls you vindictive, just remember that you were simply setting the boundaries they should have respected all along. Divorce is the best thing you could have done. My ex and I have 2 children, both under the age of 10. We divorced 2 years ago, and he has a new girlfriend and a child who I think is 13 or 14, a boy. So I suppose he isn't technically a stepchild, but they've been living together for a year and a half. My ex asked me to spot him for our kids' Christmas presents. Both our daughter and son would like bikes, and they cost around $400 each. I picked up, outside of my normal work hours, Amazon Flex spots to try and afford gifts for our children because the divorce has been terrible financially for us, and I want to try and at least give them a good Christmas. So basically, he owes me for the kids' gifts. He then had the audacity to ask me to include his new child in the mix for a Christmas present, and asked if I could spot him for that too. His dad is rich and will periodically drop gifts of $5,000 or more on him when he's so inclined, once or twice a year. However, no, I will not spot you for another child. I'm struggling to make ends meet, and I don't care that a 13-year-old will feel jealous or sad over the fact that my kids, who don't even see their dad anymore, will have a bike and they won't. My ex posted that I said no all over Facebook. To be clear, I didn't give him my internal musings. I just said I can't afford that, sorry. And all of our friends are tooting at me and saying that I'm a terrible co-parent because I'm not taking into account family dynamics. I am just so overwhelmed and tired, and I'm only focused at this point in time as a single mom giving a crap about my kids who are suffering, not someone else's. Does that make me an a-hole? Not the a-hole. If he wants to make stuff public, you should give the gifts to the kids yourself and not put his name on it at all. Then his stepkid can't be jealous because he didn't get his kids anything either. But I'm petty like that. Not the a-hole. He's an a-hole for expecting you to spot him for the gifts and for bringing the conversation to social media to put you on blast instead of keeping it private. Also, $5,000 on a gift for a child? I hope the parents are trying to put in perspective how lucky he is and how hard most people have to work for that kind of money. Not the a-hole. He isn't your kid. You aren't responsible for his feelings, especially if your own children hardly see their dad. It shouldn't be as if they and the stepchild are siblings. You can afford to get your own children presents, and they are all you should have to worry about. Thank you. He has completely lost interest in his children other than the occasional text about how much he misses them. But his social media is full of baseball games with his girlfriend and stepson. My heart hurts for the kids he's forgotten. Earlier this month, my 45 male grandmother, 98 female, passed away without a will. The family has never had a lot of money, so there's not really anything to fight over, except my grandmother's ring. The ring is special. Made from rings and other jewelry, my grandparents and great-grandparents were able to sneak out of the Soviet Union on the eve of the Nazi invasion. It has some material value, being gold and diamond, but its real value is in what it means to the family. I was speaking to my mom, 72 female, about it when my wife, 44 female, overheard me telling my mom that I didn't think that it would be right for me to take the ring. My wife and I don't have kids together and physically can't have biological children, so I thought it wasn't right for me to take the ring. It should go to one of my sisters or cousins who do have kids and can keep the ring in the family. My wife went ballistic. She has a son, my stepson, who is 17. His father died when he was a year old. I've been his stepfather now for the last 5 years. I call him my son and treat him as such. My wife is upset because I told her the reason that I refused the ring is that I could never pass it to our son. I told her that he isn't a blood relative of my grandparents, and it wouldn't be right, considering there are a dozen others who have a better claim. My wife said that I'm an a-hole because my words make it clear that I have never considered him my son and will never accept him as my child. My perspective is that he never really knew my grandmother. She's had dementia the last several years, and he only ever met her once, and that he is not part of the history that the ring represents. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I get it that your wife might be upset, but I'm honestly on the same boat with you on this one. He ain't blood related to your grandparents and does not feel any sentiment to it outside of it being gold. Your kid is 17, old enough for a serious talk. Skip your wife and speak to him like a man with a man. Besides, rings should remain with the women of the family. Get him a proper watch, something worth it that he can pass on to his kid. That's the issue I have with this case. Everything that I own will go to him. I have absolutely no problem with that. He's my son, and that's the way I feel. In this case, the ring wasn't mine to start with, and it means a lot to my family. I don't think it's right to take it. Not the a-hole. Since it was your grandmother's ring, it should go to a female anyway. It should also go to a blood relative of your grandmother. Your wife is out of line and trying to make her son a victim. She needs to get over it. My grandmother always wanted the ring to go to me. I'm the oldest child of her oldest child, and she said several times that she wanted me to have it, and for a long time, I wanted it. But now that I know I will never have biological children to pass it to, it feels wrong to accept it. This past weekend, I've, 22 female, met up with my in-laws to celebrate my nephew turning 8. I love this kid to death, and we have a close bond, so I make it a priority to be active in anything involving him since I had a baby. Anyways, not the point. My baby is 11 months and will be 1 next month, and I take pride for them not ever getting sick, not even once. Well, my brother-in-law, 23, was recently sick but over it. But everyone knows that the virus can still be in the system for a couple more days. He decided it was okay to kiss my 11-month-old all over the face. I was furious. Then I find out that the way his fever broke, my mother-in-law says, was a cold sore outbreak. I didn't find this out till about 24 hours after we left the event. Well, my baby got sick, Extremely sick, for the first time ever. I'm talking about congested, nasty cough, and fever. We took him to his pediatrician. They asked questions and I told them about what my brother-in-law did and his cold sores. I was told to be aware of any signs for RSV and immediately take them in, but that I can't do much more due to age. I was devastated. I have slept a total of 6 hours these last 2 days, and nothing is seeming to work. He denies ever kissing my baby and claims we were sick. We don't ever get sick. That they weren't cold sores but canker sores, and then had the nerves to say that my baby needs this to build immune system. He won't apologize and hasn't even reached out to even see if they are okay. Well, I just found out that he did that out of spite, because his stepson, 20-month, is consistently sick. He thought it was only fair to have our baby get sick at least once, so we know how it feels. I might have been an a-hole by telling him he will never know how it feels to stress and lose sleep about a sick child, because he isn't actually a dad. He's just playing dad for a kid who isn't even his, and that is sad because he doesn't have any common sense. But at this point, I don't care. His wife is calling, leaving voicemail saying I'm an a-hole, but as a mother, she should understand that having a sick child isn't funny. I'm furious at the fact my mother-in-law enables her man baby to think this is okay, when my legit baby is suffering. Brother-in-law told his brother, my husband, he won't be involved anymore till I apologize, but I told him to eat rocks. Am I the a-hole for refusing to apologize to brother-in-law? Edit. When I say playing dad, he's legit just playing dad. His stepson has no dad. I don't know the background story. His wife told me he hasn't done anything for her child, and only does when people are around to put up a show. Why she is with him, I have no idea. I've stepped up to help her out when she needs it. For example, I watch her child on nights because he refuses to even help with that while she's at work. I don't accept any form of payment because he's innocent. He's been around less than a year and has only shown the child anger issues. Please don't let this a-hole hold or take care of your child. He is wishing a lifelong virus on your child. Cold sores, canker sores, are herpes virus that will live in your body your entire life. I always thought everyone had them because everyone in my family did. The man I married didn't have them, and neither did his family members because none of them smothers babies with kisses when they are sick. Basic hygiene norms. Brother-in-law is willing to give your child a lifelong condition to make you feel pain. It doesn't get any scummier than this. Not the a-hole, but he sure is. Not the a-hole. I would go absolutely nuclear if this was me. Babies can die from the herpes virus. Screw all of these people. If he has said in writing that it was deliberate, you could have legal options. My husband had a baby with a woman when he was 19. They were never together, but he loved the idea of being a dad and stepped right into the role when she told him she was expecting. He's 34 now and his son is 14. He has always paid child support and actually has always paid a little more than he is required to. He only has his son 2 days a week usually, sometimes more, sometimes less. Lately, he's had him more often as he has stopped working for the past 4 months. We've been married for 4 years, and something I've noticed over the duration of this period is how often my stepson's mom will call up asking for money for cigarettes or alcohol, or that she really needs a gym membership because she doesn't trust stepson to be alone, to pay their internet bill, things like that. At first, I never said anything because I felt uncomfortable and like it wasn't my place. Lately, however, our financial circumstances have altered slightly. I'm the only one with a job at the moment. We have deep savings, and my husband is still paying his ex with that money. She is continuing to ask for extra, and I want to ask my husband to stop giving her an extra $40 here and there, because those are our savings and need to be spent on either myself, my husband, stepson, or the house, not his ex who wants Grey Goose and cigs. His attitude to this is, an easier life for her means an easier life for her son when he's over there. But in my opinion, he needs to buck up and realize that it's needless and kind of disrespectful to me that he's using our money on her very non-essential desires. I want to ask him to stop. Would I be the a-hole? Not the a-hole. If you guys talk about how the money situation has changed, I admit giving his ex money for stuff is kind of dumb, but realistically, she's going to take that money out of the kids' funds if he doesn't. I can see how mentally that puts him in a tough spot. Now, however, it's your earnings he's burning. That changes things. When he gets a job, he can go back to doing what he wants. But for now, he's literally borrowing money from you to pay for child support. Make sure he understands that you're not an infinite well of cash, and while you support him and his child, You're not going to support her. Not the a-hole, but I'd frame it while talking about your own budget, and maybe looking at how much he's given her so far this year or something. When you look at hard numbers, how much is coming in, how much is going into savings, how much he's giving her, that might give him a perspective that just a conversation wouldn't. My ex-wife's stepson, Morgan, 23 male, always had problems since we got together. She divorced her husband, then a year later we started seeing each other. Morgan was 15 and decided I'm, 36 male, the enemy for being with his mom. She told me he always had behavioral issues since he was younger, so she had him in therapy. He was in counseling for a while again after the divorce, but his behavior was always the same. When we moved in together, things got worse. He constantly broke my things, and hers too, yelled at us, refused to listen to anything his mom said. It was so hectic. Her ex encouraged this whenever he stayed with us, so that only made it worse, and she had to take him to court once for parental alienation. It put a strain in our relationship until things improved after he moved out. After that, he didn't have much contact with her. He fell into some financial trouble, so he wanted to move in with us for a while again. She was going to let him too, but I said there's no way that can happen. She convinced me to at least give it a chance since it's been a few years and he might have changed. My hunch was right. He took my car out once without telling either of us and crashed it. I had him arrested for that. We ended up getting into a huge fight. Finally, I told her it's not going to work anymore, so we separated. Shortly after that, she found out she was pregnant with our son, which should have been the happiest time in our life. Instead, we divorced. When my son was 6 months, she was in an accident and sadly passed away. It was definitely a very difficult time. After that, I moved closer to my family in the country and haven't had any contact at all with Morgan or her side of the family, aside from her brother and his kids. A month ago, we celebrated my son's birthday. It was my family, my girlfriend, my son's uncle on my mom's side, plus his cousins. My ex's brother asked a few days prior if Morgan was allowed to go too, but I told him no. Morgan had a huge fit about it. He asked me to let him see his brother as it's one of the connections he has to his mom. No doubt it's been a hard time for him losing his mom, but having him around my son with all the trouble he's caused was the last thing I'd ever want. It's been over a month since my son's birthday, yet he hasn't let this go. I had to block his number after he asked for the 8th time to please be allowed to see his brother. My ex's brother understands how much trouble Morgan is, but urges me to give him a chance. The thing is, I've already given that chance, and it spelled the end of my marriage. He's not someone I want around my son, yet I'm being called extremely insensitive for not understanding a boy grieving his mother, who just wants to meet his sibling. The only one in support is my girlfriend and family, but obviously there's some bias there, so I want to know what others think because I really don't see how I am wrong here. Not the a-hole. Sounds like this is a better safe than sorry situation. And since you're talking about the physical and emotional well-being of your very young son, it's wise to not take such a huge risk. Not the a-hole. There is no way that ends well, and without trying to do the math, I'm guessing your son is too young to have any meaningful relationship with a 23-year-old. Not the a-hole. Morgan doesn't seem to have changed after all these years. It also doesn't sound like he has even tried to make amends with you, but is instead demanding to meet your son to satisfy his own need. Without any indication that Morgan regrets his previous actions, you aren't the a-hole for not wanting him to meet your son. He is not entitled to use your son as an emotional support tool. He has taken enough from you. He has no standing to demand more.